back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie, and we have a great show for you today. The first topic we'll be covering is recapping the Dodgers-Padres Seoul Series game, the number 2 of the series, so it is going to come to an end after today, which it did, obviously, because the game happened today. After that, we'll be talking about Yoshinobu Yamamoto and the struggles he's had since coming over to the MLB. After that, we'll be talking about the Texas Rangers signing Michael Lorenzen, and the fourth segment will be about some general news stories around the league. Now, before we do that, I would like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get run in the air, please use the link gsmcpodcast.net. Really does help the show, really does mean a lot, really does help me, the entire network. So, thank you so much for that, and let's get straight into the show. So, the first topic we'll be talking about today is obviously what I talked about a little bit in the preview, which is the Dodgers-Padres. Today was the last game of the 2-game Seoul Series in Korea. So, came to an end today. The Padres ended up being victorious over the Dodgers to split the series and get both teams to be 1-1. So, we're just going to talk about what happened and overall a recap of the game and some takeaways from it. So the final score of the game was, of course, 15-11 Padres. A really high-scoring game, especially going into the year already. Baseball games do not go as high as 15-11 usually, so a lot of firepower today, and we'll explain why. So first, in the top of the first inning, Jake Cronenworth hit a triple off Yamamoto to Jason Hayward to score Xander Bogaerts and Fernando Tatis Jr. So Cronenworth, off a bad season last year, is starting off really hot, starting off well. So good for him to try and bounce back and get a nice RBI here in the first. Then Ha-Sung Kim hit a sacrifice fly, scoring Jake Cronenworth to make it 3-0 Padres with only one out in the top of the first. The new Padres catcher, Luis Campusano, then doubled on a ground ball to left fielder Teoscar Hernandez, which was deflected by Max Muncy, and Manny Machado ended up scoring and made 4-0 Padres. After that, we had Tyler Wade singling on a line drive to Jason Hayward, making it 5-0 San Diego, scoring Luis Campusano, and making it not a great first inning for the Dodgers and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So obviously the Padres had the momentum going into the start of the game and started off really well. But the Dodgers up to bat now in the bottom of the first. Will Smith doubled on a sharp fly ball to center fielder Jackson Merrill, scoring Ohtani. Freddie Freeman went to third, making it 5-1 Padres now in the bottom of the first going into the second. So, of course, a great start by the Padres, but a nice job for the Dodgers to answer a little bit and try and get some runs back on the board. Bottom of the second, Ohtani hit another RBI for the Dodgers, getting a sacrifice fly to score Gavin Lux. It was to Fernando Tatis Jr. Mookie Betts went to third to make it 5-2 Padres. So slowly the Dodgers are coming back. Obviously, the Padres started off really well, so it's just nice by the Dodgers try and piece this back together, just piece by piece, get some runs together. Then in the top of the third, Xander Bogaerts hit a 2 RBI single up the middle to make it 7-2 Padres, kind of blowing the game open at that point. We figured the Dodgers were coming back a little bit, but Padres just blew it open. And then after that, Fernando Tatis Jr. reached on a fielding error by Max Muncy to score Jackson Merrill. Xander Bogaerts then went to third to make it 8-2 Padres. Then Jake Cronenworth hit another RBI, hitting a sacrifice fly to James Outman, scoring Xander Bogaerts, and also James Outman had a throwing error on that play. So now it was the top of the third, and it was 9-2 Padres. Not what anyone expected, I'd say, especially for a game where we thought it might be a pitching duel. Bottom of the third now, Dodgers trying to come back a little bit. James Outman hit an RBI ground out to Jake Cronenworth. Will Smith scored. Max Muncy went to third, making it 9-3 Padres. Jason Hayward hit an RBI single on a line drive, making it 9-4 Padres. Then Mookie Betts doubled, scoring 2, making it 9-6 Padres. And suddenly, just like that, the Dodgers are back in this game. I mean, the Dodgers lineup and just the depth they have on this team is just absolutely incredible. 9-2 to start the game, and it's just 9-6 right after that. The amount of just pure talent on this team is truly just extraordinary, and they can really come back from any deficit we're seeing right now. Jake Cronenworth then hit another RBI, making it 10-6 Padres. Just on an absolute tear this game he was. Had a really bad season last year. Coming off that big extension, was involved in a lot of trade rumors, specifically involved in Juan Soto trade talks. A lot of teams were thinking about taking his contract on with Soto to lower the price of getting Soto. That's how much he was viewed as a negative, that he would be a guy to take on a contract. Teams would take on his contract to get a player. They didn't even look at him as a positive asset at that point. They looked at him as a negative one. So a really bad season last year, an off season that was filled with trade rumors for him. So it's nice to see him coming back, He's had a really nice career so far. Came out, obviously got a big extension by the Padres, so it's been really nice to see Jake Cronenworth coming back again, doing his old thing, and his career's been really exciting so far. He was a guy who was a throw-in in the Tommy Pham trade when he got traded from Tampa to San Diego as a two-way player. Has really come into his own as the first baseman for the Padres, so really happy for him, and I'm glad he's performing again. Mookie Betts then hit a 2-run homer to make it 10-8 Padres. Mookie Betts is just so good. He's so incredible, such an amazing player. I feel like people don't realize how good he actually is. I mean, we obviously know he's an amazing player, first ballot Hall of Famer as soon as he retires, as soon as he hits 10 years, really. But he is just an incredible player, an incredible talent. I feel like we've taken him for advantage now because his talent for advantage because we've seen him play for so long. Just wow, he is so good, and he's one of the leaders on the Dodgers team, of course. Only the top of the sixth now, Luis Campusano hitting an RBI double to make it 11-8 Padres, so getting some more insurance runs for the Padres. In the top of the sixth, it's 11-8, an incredible game. Jose Azocar reached on another fielding error by Max Muncy, scoring Xander Bogaerts and getting the bases loaded, make it 12-8 Padres. Could not do anything else after that, but still 12-8 Padres in the top of the seventh. I'd say that's pretty great for them. After that, we had Will Smith singling on a fly ball to second baseman Xander Bogaerts. Yeah, there we go. Will Smith singling on a fly ball to second baseman Xander Bogaerts. Mookie Betts scored. Freddie Freeman went to third, so now it is 12-9 Padres. Dodgers again, just always staying in the game, no matter how high the lead gets, no matter how much their spirits might be crushed because of how the game is going. Always keeping in the game, and that's what's so incredible about this Dodgers team. The sheer amount of talent they have. They know how to stick in games. They know how to just be there, never feel like they're out of it. So many incredible things about this Dodgers team, and I think that's up there. Mookie Betts, again, RBI single, scoring James Outman, scoring Jason Hayward, making it a one-run game now on the bottom of the eighth, 12-11 Padres. Dodgers fans feeling some hope now, and it all comes crashing down, as in the top of the ninth, Manny Machado homers on a fly ball to left field. Fernando Tatis Jr. scores. Jake Cronenworth scores, making it 15-11 Padres. And absolutely crushing Dodgers fan spirit, who they in the end when they thought they could maybe come back, but nope. Manny lays it down to his former team and his rival now, and closes out the game for him. Robert Suarez gets a 1-2-3 inning to close out the game, striking out Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and Max Muncy, heart of the Dodgers lineup. And that is it for the game. 15-11 Padres, a really exciting game, really interesting game. The fact that it was so high scoring this early into the game. So I think the Seoul Series was a success. Again, I'm a big fan of it. Always a big fan of expanding baseball, expanding the game, expanding the league to other places. To me, baseball is the best game in the world, so I'm always happy when other people have a chance to experience it. And Korea, there's been a lot of players coming from Korea in the past few years. I think it is becoming a great place for players to come from the KBO. We had Eric Fetty come over, an American, of course, but kind of got his career back on track in the KBO, signed a nice deal with the White Sox. Stars like Jung-Hoo Lee came over. Ha-Sung Kim came over as well. So I think Korea is a great place to have it. I think they're becoming more of a baseball country than ever. They always were, but because just being in Asia, so I think you're always a baseball country there, but they're having a lot more players now. I think the Dodgers and Padres were great choices. The Padres have 2 Korean players on their roster, so I think they were a pretty great choice to play there. Same with the Dodgers as well. As much as they don't have Korean players, they do have Japanese players. The countries are around each other, so I think they're a great choice. And in California, there is a large Asian population, so I really don't think there could have been 2 better teams to be picked. Also, adding on to that, these teams are rivals. They don't like each other very much, so I think that brought another level of competitiveness to the game, realness to the game with the players being there. So I thought this was a great idea. I thought it was a great move by Manfred, by the entire league, to have this Seoul Series game. I think they picked the exact right teams, and I'd be looking forward to it next year. Maybe not with these teams again, but overall I think it was a great success, and I think it was a great idea by Manfred and his team. Going over the notable box scores now, Mookie Betts had 5 at-bats, scored 2 runs, had 4 hits, and had 6 RBIs and a walk. He's incredible. He's just an incredible talent. He had a 1.838 OPS now going into the season. Just, again, incredible. Ohtani only had 1 hit and 5 at-bats, but had an RBI, scored a run, so pretty great by him. He's hitting 300 on the season. Again, small sample size, but it's what you want. OPS is not good as 5.73, but again, he's showing the pieces. He's showing why he is Ohtani so far. He's showing you just little by little why he is who he is. So nothing you can complain about. Freddie Freeman had a hit and also had 2 walks. Will Smith had 4 hits and 6 at-bats. Really great job by him. 2 RBIs as well. Max Muncy made some fielding errors, but 6 at-bats, 2 hits. Not a great game for him, but at least got some hits to get off the fielding errors, I guess, which were a big deal, though. Teoscar Hernandez had 2 walks, 2 strikeouts in his 3 at-bats. James Outman, 3 at-bats, had scored 1 run, had an RBI, and had a walk. So nice job by him. Doesn't have a hit yet on the season, so hopefully he'll get that going into the real opening day soon. After that, we had Jason Hayward scoring 3 runs, getting 2 hits and an RBI in his 5 at-bats. A really nice job by him, having another strong season with the Dodgers, which he's trying to build off last year. Gavin Lux had 2 runs, 2 hits in 5 at-bats, so nice job by him in this game. Of course, Yamamoto struggled. 1 inning pitched, 4 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. Has a 45 ERA in the season. I'm not going to be talking about him in depth in this part because he is the next segment I'm going to be talking about, so I'll be talking about him more there. So stick around if you want to hear about that. So I'm not going to go too much in depth here. Michael Grove out of the bullpen was not good either. 2 innings pitched, 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned runs, 2 strikeouts. Not good. Same with Kyle Hurt, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk. Bullpen was great yesterday for the Dodgers, but some of the younger guys came in and were really not that good. Alex Vesia gave up an earned run and a walk. Ryan Yarbrough out of the bullpen gave up a hit. JP Fireeisen, 1 inning pitch, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 1 home run. Not good. Gus Varland, 1/3 of an inning, was good. So Dodgers bullpen, the younger guys there are not performing as well as the veteran guys are. So that's something I'll definitely watch going into the season, seeing how these guys do perform, seeing if they can live up to their potential a little bit. So that's something I want to see. Going to the Padres box score here now. We have Xander Bogaerts leading off. In 5 at-bats, he had 3 runs, 2 hits, 2 RBIs, a walk. So his really nice job starting off the season in his new position at second base. I think it shows a lot about him being a veteran, being fine with moving positions for the first time in his career, doing the better of the team. So I like that he's doing that, and I think he's showing the Padres that he's a real leader on this team. You had Fernando Tatis Jr. in 4 at-bats, had 2 runs, 2 hits, an RBI, and a walk. So pretty nice game by him. Jay Cronenworth, of course, was a beast. 4 at-bats, 4 hits, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored. An incredible start to his season. 1.250 OPS to start the season. Manny Machado, 2 runs, a hit, and 3 RBIs. 2 walks as well in his 4 at-bats. Really nice start to his season. Ha-Sung Kim went hitless but had an RBI in his walks, so that's okay with him. He's probably having a little bit of nerves going back to his native Korea, so I don't blame him that much. Jurickson Profar had 3 at-bats, had a walk, so that was nice for him. Luis Campusano, 6 at-bats, 3 hits, 2 RBIs. Great job by him to start off the season, being the Padres' main catcher for the first time in his career. Really excited to see what he can do with this opportunity. I think he's a really good player, so I am happy for him getting this opportunity. Tyler Wade, the new Padres third baseman for now, while Manny Machado nurses his injury. He had a run, 2 hits, and an RBI. Surprisingly, he's off to a really nice start with the Padres this season, so could show to be a valuable bench piece going down into the year. And Jackson Merrill had his first MLB hit today. 2 hits in 5 at-bats, 3 strikeouts though, but having an okay start to the season. So overall, that was the Padres-Dodgers game. 15-11 Padres. So obviously very exciting score. Was not much of a pitching duel, I'd say. Looking at the Padres box score now for the pitchers, Joe Musgrove gave up 5 earned runs in 2 2/3 innings. Not good at all. Tom Crossgrove gave up an earned run out of the bullpen. Michael King gave up 3 earned runs as well. I don't know why he was out of the bullpen, but I guess they could use it in that way because there's a big gap. But that's what Shildt doing. Yuki Matsui only gave up 2 hits, but no earned runs, and Robert Suarez shut it down for a save. So it was a really exciting game. I'm really excited. So I'm really excited for the game. So yeah, I'm really excited to watch these teams going into the season, and super excited to see what they can do next. So that's our first segment. For the second segment, what we're going to do is talk about Yoshinobu Yamamoto and his struggles. We talked about it a little bit in the last segment, of course, because he was in that game, and that's where kind of his struggles were going towards. But I want to talk about more in depth for a whole segment because I thought it was a notable topic. So we're going to talk about that. And before that, we'll go to a break, but we'll talk about that next. So thanks, and see you after that. Bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. Now, before we do that, I would like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. Please do donate as well at GSMCpodcast.net. It really does help me. It really does help the show. It really does help everyone here at the network. So thank you so much for that, and let's get back into the show here. So we're going to be talking about our second segment here, which, as I previewed before the break, is going to be about the Dodgers superstar pitcher, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Now, Yamamoto has really struggled since coming over to the MLB, something I did not expect, to be perfectly honest. But I think we're going to talk about it, talk about the problems I think that are going on and just what could be happening. So, just going over a little bit, Yamamoto had an 8.38 ERA in spring, which obviously, if you know anything about baseball, that's not very good. That would mean he would be giving up 8 earned runs if he went 9 innings every start. Again, not good. Not good in the slightest. So I think a lot of people figure, okay, it's just growing pains for spring, nothing too much to be worried about. Spring training results don't really matter. I agree with that personally. I think it's more about the process than the actual results, if that does make sense. I think you're just trying to test out everything, and there was a lot of luck involved with baseball, and I think spring training is indicative of that and shows you shouldn't be that worried about results come this time. So I wasn't really worried about that as a guy who is super high in Yamamoto. But now, going into his first start, he pitched 1 inning, gave up 5 earned runs. That's not good in the slightest. The Padres aren't a horrible lineup, but they're also not the best. They're not a team like the Braves or the Diamondbacks or someone like that, the Phillies. They're a good lineup, but then a great one. It gets weaker as it goes down. So for me, that was a little bit worrying. And going into his first MLB inning, his only MLB inning, he had a single, then a hit by pitch, then a 2 RBI triple, then a walk, then a sacrifice fly, a wild pitch, a strikeout, an RBI double, an RBI single, and then a strikeout. So what I see here, first of all, is yes, he got 2 strikeouts, but the other out he got was a sacrifice fly, so he's still giving up contact, presumably hard contact. So that was a little bit worrying to me. Also, just the amount of hits he got. He had a single, a 2 RBI triple, an RBI double, and then another RBI single. So that's definitely worrying if I am a Dodgers fan, because he was hanging pitches. You could tell a lot of pitches were not supposed to be where they were pitched. They were just hanging over the strike zone, not going into great places. So that wasn't great. Another thing I would be worried about is the command problems. He was always known for having great command, so giving up a hit by pitch, a walk, and a wild pitch is very out of character for him. So that is another thing I would be notable about if I was a Dodgers fan, watching the command problems, something that is, again, kind of worrying, but not in the same sense. I'll explain it more. So overall, what I would say is, I would ask, am I worried as a baseball fan? A guy who is very high in Yamamoto, a guy who's been following him for years now, a guy I wanted the Mets to get for years. Obviously, we were close. We were in the top 3, but we didn't get him. Am I worried? Yes and no. So first, let's start off with the yes. I think anytime you have an 8.38 ERA in spring and give up 5 earned runs in your first inning as a major league pitcher, that's up for some concern. you have to look at that as not, you're not going to look at that as a positive in no way, shape, or form. That's just a fact, obviously. So that obviously is something to watch. That is something to see, to talk about. You never want to see that happen. But overall, I'm not worried in the big picture because I think he'll be fine. I think he just has a sheer amount of stuff that is just purely incredible, that I think overall the worries about him will go away, and I think he'll find himself eventually. There's so many factors going into Yamamoto and so many new things he has to learn being an MLB pitcher that it's honestly incredible. And it's so much stuff. First of all, he has to learn an entirely new language. I'm sure he knows some English, but not a lot. As just relaying it to my personal experience, I've been learning Spanish in public school since 7th grade, and only thing I know how to say is hola. So I think learning a new language is something that's very overlooked with younger players coming over to an entirely new country. I mean, I couldn't move to Japan for a job. Couldn't communicate with anyone. So I think that's something you have to look for with Yamamoto, giving it a human side of it. This is a big step for him, a big step for a person, a 25-year-old guy. Again, we look at him as amazing baseball pitcher who got $300 million. Yes, all that's true, but there's a human inside there. There's a guy who has to move to an entirely different country, away from his friends and family, learning a whole different culture, speaking a whole new language, speaking to people who don't know what he's saying because they don't really know Japanese that well. So I think there's a lot of that as well. There is some things there that he is probably still getting adjusted to all this. Yes, he has a translator, but that's just a middleman. That's not him talking, really. So I think you have to look at that. Second of all, I think there's a lot of changes with MLB to the MPB. First of all, the competition. The competition is undoubtedly better. MPB to me is probably like 4A. It's better than AAA, but worse than MLB. So it's not a league to be, it's not a league to just discount and say this, your results mean nothing over here. That definitely means something, and it's definitely a very good league. But it's also not something where you say, okay, this is very indicative to what the MLB is. This is very similar. So I think you have to look at it that way as well, that he is coming to an entirely new league where the competition is better. He's also facing guys like Manny Machado now, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ha-Sung Kim, Jake Cronenworth. Like, these guys are great players and great veterans. So I think you look at it that way as well. Xander Bogaerts, who I didn't even mention. So I think you're looking at it that way as well. Also, another thing is the balls. The ball in MPB is much different than the MLB baseball. From what I know is that the MLB baseball is different in size, and there also is some sticky stuff applied in the MPB by itself to help you better with that. So I believe that is true. If it is not true, I do apologize, but that is what I have read and learned. So there's a lot of differences in the ball as well. I know Kodai Senga last year had some trouble with that. So there's a lot of things you have to learn as an MPB player coming over to the MLB, really as an international player as well. There's a lot of things you have to learn. You have to change about your lifestyle. Again, you're coming over to a whole new country. Could you, watching this video right now, go to a new country and live there off the rip? That's a very big transition. Also, yes, has he been preparing himself to move to the U.S. for a long time? Probably, but it's a difference between preparing yourself and going there. So I just taken a little bit of the human side as well. I think that you have to look at it that way. I think a lot about it is pressure as well. He's getting $300 million before throwing an MLB pitch, so I think there is some nerves there. There is some little bit of, he's feeling the pressure now of who he is playing in a big market, so I think that's there as well. And another thing with pitchers is the battery mate. I don't think he's ever thrown to Will Smith before in his entire life. So he's learning a whole new command system with his new catcher, who is also one of the better guys in the league. So he could feel overwhelmed there. So you're learning to pitch to a whole new guy. You're learning to communicate in different ways. Battery mate is something that a lot of pitchers feel very connected to. Someone that really helps them a lot. I mean, even last year, Blake Snell talked about how much Gary Sanchez was helpful to him winning that Cy Young. And I think that's another thing you have to watch for, like, just going for Blake Snell. Is he going to perform a little worse this year with the Giants because his battery mate isn't there, the guy he feels most comfortable with, a guy who he knows how he frames to know where to pitch it. He knows what when he lays down the fingers between his glove to call a pitch, he knows what he's talking about. He knows the code they talk in. So there's a lot of things for an international player coming over, and specifically for a pitcher. So there's a lot of factors going on here. So am I worried about Yamamoto? Again, yes and no. Yes, because these things aren't great to start off your career. An 8 ERA in spring and then 5 earned runs in your first MLB innings pitched in a real game. Of course, not great. But there's so many other factors going on that I don't feel overwhelmingly worried that he's just going to be a big bust. So, again, the one thing with pitchers is, do they have great stuff? Yamamoto does. Yamamoto has absolutely electric, incredible stuff, and that's why that's why we know of at least 5 teams that offered him $300 million. So I think that's definitely something to watch here, and see why these teams did it, because there's a reason. They project him to be an amazing player, and I think he will be. And overall, I'm not that worried about him. I still think he'll be a great player. Look, the Dodgers knew this going in. They knew it wasn't going to be a clean transition. They knew that he was going to start it a little bit slow. Every pitcher's different. I know Senga jumped right into there last year, didn't really have a problem, but he's older. Yamamoto's only 25, so there's a lot of factors here, and I'm not worried about Yamamoto, and I think he'll be fine. So that's really my thoughts on it. After that, again, I've talked about the Dodgers and their rotation having some question marks, mainly because of Yamamoto. Yamamoto's great. Again, I love him. I think he's going to be an amazing pitcher in the league, but it's his first year coming over to MLB. That is something that you have to talk about with him. He's going over to this league for the first time. He is a rookie, so you don't know how he's going to perform. After that, you have Tyler Glasnow. He's had some pitching injuries in the past. He is always a risk. You have other rookies like Bobby Miller. You have, of course, Emmett Sheehan, who's not starting the year there, but is a guy who is a rookie, is going to be pitching meaningful innings. So rookies, of course, are always going to have question marks about them because it is their first season pitching significant innings. So I think you have to look at it that way as well. You also have James Paxton, who got injured, who they showed an injury during his physical. So that's another thing as well. Gavin Stone, who won the 5th starting job. Again, injury, and you don't know what's going to happen with him because he is a rookie. Walker Buehler's coming off injury. So is Clayton Kershaw. So when those guys come in as well. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of risks for the Dodgers rotation, I think more than some people would like to admit. So that's something I'm watching here, and that's something I want to see. So it's going to be interesting to see how their rotation does perform going into the season. But overall, tying it back to Yamamoto, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be pretty great, so I'm not that worried. So that was my second segment, talking about Yoshinobu Yamamoto and his struggles coming into the MLB so far. We're going to be going to our third segment, which is going to be talking about Michael Lorenzen and him signing with the Texas Rangers, and just my overall thoughts on it. One of the free agents finally signing. Only a few more to go before I can do my off-season grades, which I've been dying to do, so really excited for that. So we'll be getting into that, but first we'll be taking our second break of the show and going into our segment 3. So thanks. See you after that. Bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment. Hopefully you guys liked the new commercial before it. That was pretty cool, in my opinion. So we're going to talk about some free agent news happening last night that was kind of surprising in my opinion. Didn't really see it coming. It came out of nowhere, which was that Michael Lorenzen has finally signed, and he has signed with the Texas Rangers. Now, Lorenzen was one of the more notable guys left on the market. I'd say him and Mike Clevenger, and of course Jordan Montgomery, I couldn't forget about him, are the real guys left on the market for starting pitching for teams that want them. Obviously, Montgomery is more of a financial commitment than Clevenger and Lorenzen, who are guys that are going to get short-term contracts for not a lot of money, I'd assume, as we see with Lorenzen. Clevenger as well, we'll see what he gets. Again, I talked about this a few times, but there are some character concerns with Mike Clevenger, so I'm not exactly sure how that will affect his market and overall what's going to happen with him. So, yeah, that is something we'll see about if anyone does end up signing Mike Clevenger. So we'll be seeing that. But yeah, so Michael Lorenzen to Texas. 1 year, $4.5 million. You can get $2.5 million in incentives to make it overall to $7 million. So, overall thoughts on the deal for the Rangers and Lorenzen. First, for Lorenzen, I like this deal for him. I think getting 4.5, getting a chance to get it to 7, I think was a really nice deal for him. At this point, you don't really know where you're gonna go because you haven't been signed. You probably have to build up towards the season. So I think it was a nice job by him landing with a team that not only is competitive, but has a clear starting role for him. So I think it was a great move, and I think it was a great job by Lorenzen to finally sign, and also sign with the defending world champions. Again, signing with a actual contending team this late into the season is pretty great by him. So I'm excited for him and excited for him to get a starting job. So now thoughts on the deal for Texas. To be perfectly honest, I love this deal for Texas. I honestly love it. I've talked about so much on this podcast how much I do not like the Rangers going into the year. I think their pitching's flawed. I think they needed some more guys. I think they should have re-signed Montgomery, which obviously is not going to be the case now, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so I think Lorenzen is a great move by them, a great buy low signing, only 4.5 to get up to 7, only for 1 year. Brings a lot more depth to that rotation. Nathan Eovaldi, John Gray, Andrew Heaney, Dane Dunning, Cody Bradford. You're telling me Lorenzen isn't better than Bradford? I'd say he is. So he slots in right there, probably to that number 4 or 5 spot. I think it brings a lot more depth to this rotation, not only now, but when the other pitchers do come back. Tyler Mahle, Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom. So I think it was a great job by them to get another pitcher involved and really just add more depth to this rotation and pitching staff that needed it. So I was really excited for the Rangers to get this deal done. I think it was a great baseball move. I think it was a great fit on paper. And I think they knew they needed to add another starting pitcher, whether they wanted to admit it or not. They talked about how they felt fine with their rotation right now and that they didn't really want to add another guy. Well, I didn't really agree with that, and I didn't think that was true. But I think they realized this, and they realized they need another guy, and I think getting Lorenzen is an awesome move for them. Again, adds a lot more depth to this rotation, gives them a number 5 guy here, a guy who maybe isn't going to have a 3 ERA or something like that, but probably have a low to mid-4 ERA, which is fine for a 5 guy. Eats a lot of innings, throws quality pitches. Just a guy you can rely on every 5th day to go out there and throw some okay innings. Just an innings eater. And that's really all you want from a 5th starter. You don't need a guy who's going to have a 2.5 ERA from a 5th starter. Would that be great? Of course it would be great. I think any team would want that. But looking realistically, a 5 starter is just a guy that eats innings whenever you're at the end of your rotation. A guy that a guy that goes in the lineup that day, and the hitters are like, okay, we know we have to do a little bit more this game. Our ace is not on the mound. This guy's good, but he's not going to give us the numbers that we want. He's going to throw a lot of innings, and we'll feel comfortable there, but we know we have to hit a lot today, and we know we have to outscore him with runs. We're not going to win with pitching. So I think Lorenzen was a great signing there. I think 4.5 is a totally reasonable price for him and the team. Again, no state income tax in Texas, so he gets all that money. Great job for him. So I think overall it was a pretty great move for Texas. I think it was a great move for Lorenzen. And overall, I just think it was a great move by both sides, and I really, really liked it. So with that, I will say now, where does it leave the Rangers now and also the other free agent starters? So now, For Montgomery, first of all, I think that's officially closed the door on a return to Texas for him. Obviously, we had heard that Chris Young said they were unlikely to add anyone else notable or Jordan Montgomery to the team. I believe that, but now it just feels more real because I don't think after signing Lorenzen, you're going to also sign Jordan Montgomery because of the financial situation you find yourselves in. So I think that officially closes the door on Montgomery to Texas. He only pitched there for a little bit, but wow, was he incredible there. I mean, looking at him, comparing him to other trade deadline acquired guys, I would maybe look at a guy like CC Sabathia getting traded from the Guardians to the Brewers as a comparison for this. A big name pitcher getting traded at the deadline, hoping a small market team get back to the playoffs for the first time in a while. CC obviously did it with the Brewers, and they only went to a wild card game, so they didn't do much after that, and Montgomery won the World Series. But I think comparison in that way is good because both are big name left-handed pitchers, guys who help their mid-market teams get back to the playoffs, have a really exciting playoff run, become heroes in the place they played in, even though they didn't play for that long. So I think it was a great move by Texas getting him at the deadline. He was one of the big reasons you got to the World Series. So a great career in Texas for Montgomery that was short-lived, and I don't think any Rangers fan is going to be mad at him for leaving. And I think they all recognize how special he was to this team, even for that little amount of time, and how much of importance he was for the team to win the World Series. So the real thing I want to talk about here is how much better does it make the Rangers? Does it make them better enough to get me to put them into the playoff standings now? No, it doesn't. Now, again, I said I love the Lorenzen signing. I do. I think it's a great move, and I think it's a great job there. But I don't think it's as significant enough as a move to get them to automatically climb my list of AL teams to make the playoffs. Teams I still think are better than them. I think the Yankees, Astros, Orioles, of course, are better. I would say their teams in their division. I would say the Mariners are better. I would say the Blue Jays are better. I think they're on track with the Rays, but I'd lean Rays. So I don't think it makes them as significant of a significant enough upgrade to get them past these teams that they were kind of clumped in with before. So as much as it is a nice signing, I don't think there's any move they could have done sorry for the word mumble jumbo, to get into position to be a team that I'm going to count into the playoffs no matter what. Could they make the playoffs still? Absolutely. 100% they could. I think there's a real chance they still make the playoffs. I mean, again, they're the defending world champions. I'm not going to doubt them at all at any time. So I would say that I don't have them as a playoff team right now, but that could change. Again, I didn't have them as a playoff team. I didn't have them winning the World Series last year, and that's what they did. So I think you look at it that way, in that anything can really happen with this team. So I think they're pretty great. Still, I just think there's a lot of teams better. I would kind of compare them to the Giants in kind of a big way, mainly for the pitching staff. Both teams added names to the pitching staff to help them in the first half. They have good talent in this pitching staff, but a lot of talent coming back in the second half. With the Giants, it's Alex Cobb, Robbie Ray, Keaton Wynn, Tristan Beck. For the Rangers, it's Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Tyler Mahle. So I think the Rangers' rotation is going to get significantly better in the second half, and I think as long as they can bridge the gap from the first half to the second half and stay afloat with their pitching staff, it should be fine. I mean, having all these guys in the second half would be pretty incredible. I mean, you'd have Scherzer, you'd have deGrom, you'd have Gray, you'd have Eovaldi, you'd have Heaney, you'd have Bradford, Lorenzen. Those are 7 real guys. I don't even know if I mentioned Mahle. If I did, that's 7 or 8 guys now that can make a quality MLB start and be really, really good for you and be really big improvements to this pitching staff. So I think it was a great move. I think overall, even though it's not as significant enough a move to maybe get them into the playoffs, I think it's still a great move. I think it was a great job by them to make the move and get it done and add another pitcher. Now, just an overlook for them. Again, I would still have them as what I had yesterday, which is maybe a team that's 8 or 9 in the AL. As of right now, I again, my rankings are, I would go Astros, Yankees, Orioles as top 3. I would then say the Mariners are above them. I would say the Blue Jays are 2. I would say the Rays are. That's 3. I would say the Twins are. That's 4. So I think they are right now probably the 9th best team in the AL, or the 8th best team actually. Sorry, I counted wrong. But I think that's just more having to do with the AL being so good than them being so horrible or just a disastrous team. No, they're still really good. It's just that there's a lot of better teams than them in the AL and a lot of teams that are significantly past them in talent just because of those injuries. Now, their hitting core is still fantastic. I mean, there's the sheer amount of talent they have. Jonah Heim, Nathaniel Lowe, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Josh Young, Adolis Garcia, Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford. Like, just the sheer amount of talent on this Rangers team is honestly incredible with the hitting. So it won't surprise me if they make the playoffs or if they even win that division. I don't think they will, but I think they have a lot of good going for them. I think this Lorenzen signing helps them in that regard as well, and that's really what I think it is. So that's the thing with the Rangers is I love the Lorenzen move, but I don't think it's as significant enough to get them back into a certified playoff spot no matter what. Do I think Montgomery would have done that? Probably not. I think he's much more of a significant addition than Lorenzen would be, of course, because he is a much better player. I don't think anyone would be debating that, even Michael Lorenzen himself. But yeah, that's really just my overall thoughts on the Lorenzen signing. Again, a good move by Texas, maybe even a great move, but not significant enough to get them back into the playoffs, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with the season in the end. And I could just be flat on my face wrong like last year. Obviously, I didn't have this show at this time last year where I picked the Rays to beat the Rangers in the first round. Obviously, that came out to blow up in my face because the Rangers then went on to win the World Series in 5 games. So anything can happen in baseball. I think the Rangers still have a great team, but I just think there's too many question marks about the rotation that even a good Michael Lorenzen signing doesn't fix. So that's really what my thoughts are on the Lorenzen signing and overall the Texas Rangers. So that was our third segment here. We're going to move on to our fourth and final segment, which is going to be about just some general news stories around the league. I think you guys know which one is going to be the first one. It involves Shohei Ohtani. I think that should make it clear what it's going to be about. I'll explain it after, but I'll explain why I didn't have a full segment on that after. So, yeah, we'll be talking about that. But first, we go into our third break. So, thank you so much, and we'll see you after that. Thanks. Bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth and final segment, which is going to be about some general news stories around the league that I did want to touch upon. I probably couldn't talk about these things for a full segment, but overall together, I did want to touch upon them. So, the first thing we have to talk about is, of course, the biggest story going on in baseball right now, the Shohei Ohtani translator situation. So, I want to start off by saying, first of all, I didn't make a full segment on this because I think it's more of a baseball-related story than a baseball story. I think it's more of a legal situation, and I'm not a law expert, as you can probably tell. I mean, I host a baseball podcast. I don't host a law podcast, so I'm not entirely sure what the entire parameters of the situation are. So I didn't want to kind of talk about an ongoing legal situation that is very serious without while making claims that I really don't know about. So I did want to touch upon it because it is huge baseball-related news, but that is why I didn't do a full segment on it because, again, I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to law or legal gambling rings, so that's really the entire reason. So basically, news broke, just to explain what happened, news broke last night that Shohei Ohtani's longtime translator Ippei, who he is known to be really good friends with, that is something that is publicly known, was stealing from him for an excess of $4.5 million and putting it into illegal gambling rings and trying to pay off and having a very high debt as well. That is what we first heard the story was. Then we heard more about it, saying that the Dodgers knew about it and had fired him already, which is true. He has been fired. Ohtani now is a new translator. And we knew that ESPN had heard of the story before us and reached out to him and talked about him in the story, in the interview last night before today's game. He said that it was all his fault. He had a very bad gambling problem, and Shohei paid his debt. Then he said he said that statement was false and Shohei had nothing to do with it, and that Ohtani's lawyers had stepped in then, saying that Ohtani was the victim of a crime of Ippei stealing from him to pay off his gambling debt or gamble more. I'm not sure which one it really was. Now, there's a lot of people have been speculating as how could a professional translator get up to a gambling debt of $4.5 million. That's something that is interesting. Also, I would say that's a fair point. They're saying, why did he first say Ohtani was involved? Then Ohtani's lawyer said he wasn't. There's something fishy going on there. A lot of people think Ohtani's actually the one who has a gambling problem and that Ippei was just the fall guy, kind of a Michael Jordan situation. I think that's just trying to be a conspiracy theorist when there's no conspiracy going on. But, people want something to talk about. I understand. Now, my personal view of the outside of it is that Ippei told his good friend Shohei Ohtani that he had a very bad gambling problem, he had a very bad gambling debt, and that he asked Shohei to pay off the debt because Shohei has a lot of money, considering he is the best player in baseball. Shohei agreed, paid off his debt. His lawyers then found out and told him that was not a very smart thing to do, paying off an illegal gambling debt in illegal gambling rings, and then try to spin the story to something else so he wouldn't be involved in a legal situation. Now, that is my personal thoughts, but again, I don't know enough about it, but just judging off of what happened, being a logical thinker in my opinion, that is what I have gathered from it. But again, we're going to learn more about this in the coming days and weeks, so it's a very fluid situation. But just going on the actual baseball effect of it, I do think this is sort of a big effect for Ohtani. Ippei is a guy that we've known very publicly. Ohtani is very good friends with, a guy that he came over from Japan with. Two guys that are very good friends, go everywhere together, talking always in the dugout. Ippei actually resigned when MLB went on strike because he wasn't allowed to talk to Ohtani, being a employee of the team. You're not allowed to talk to players, so he resigned just so he could talk to Shohei. So obviously, this is if Ippei did end up stealing from him and Ohtani was a clueless victim, I think this is a big blow to Ohtani. Not really being able to trust one of your closest friends, a guy you came up with, a guy you put a lot of trust in to be your translator, to be a big part of your career. So I think that would be a big thing there. Could it affect his play on the field? I don't think so, but I think in the clubhouse you don't have a guy you're comfortable translating for you now. That's the way you talk to your teammates, so that's something else. He is getting a new translator, yes, but he had a very close connection to the other one, so I'm not sure how that will ultimately affect him going into the season. So I think you have to look at it that way, but again, it's a very fluid situation, and we don't know what's going to happen. I'll keep updating this as it goes on, probably in this fourth segment. But if any other notable things happen, I will let you know. But that's really what my gauge on it is right now. But again, I'm not a law expert. I don't know a lot about illegal gambling rings. I don't gamble myself, so I couldn't tell you the real story going on, and I don't think it's my place to talk about it anyways. So I did want to touch upon that for a good amount of minutes because it is a very notable baseball story that is baseball related, but maybe isn't actually a big baseball related, but a big thing happening on the field. So next we have some actual baseball news, which we'll get to now. Jordan Wicks and Javier Assad have made the Cubs rotation, being the 4 and 5 starters, pushing veteran Drew Smyly to the bullpen. Smyly has 1 year left on his 2-year contract. I think he's a really good veteran pitcher, but I agree with the Cubs thinking here. Jordan Wicks and Javier Assad are both good young players that show a lot of potential, and I'd much rather have that than a guy who is going to be a veteran. Drew Smyly usually has a high 4 ERA. A fine pitcher, a fine guy out of the bullpen that I definitely think will provide some depth for this Cubs team, but I'm always up to the belief of give younger guys a shot, see what they can do. If they fail, they fail, and if they do well, you have a guy to bring for the future. Jordan Wicks, I'm very high on. I love his curveball. I think he was a great first-round pick by the Cubs a few years ago. I think Javier Assad has a lot of potential as well. So overall, I think this is a great decision by the Cubs. And again, I'm always a fan of younger players getting the job over veteran guys. Next, we have Alex Marsh. He also won the fifth starting spot in the Royals rotation, beating out guys like Jordan Lyles and Daniel Lynch. Jordan Lyles moved to the bullpen now. So another good job by the Royals. The 25-year-old who was a second-round pick, I think has some amount of potential for the Royals that he could bring, especially as a number 5 starter. So I think good job by the Royals to make the right decision here. And I'm excited to see what Marsh can do. Excited to see if he has some nice pitch to show off, some nice potential. So overall, I think this is a great decision by the Royals. And again, I'm always of the fact of getting younger guys involved and seeing what they can do. Again, if they're bad, they're bad. If they're great, you have a building piece for the future. A minor trade here. The Rays acquired pitcher Joe Rock, an amazing name, by the way. I want to get that out. Joe Rock, that's an incredible name. For former first-round pick Greg Jones. Kind of a nothing trade here, but it was notable as Jones was a former first-round pick by the Rays. Obviously didn't work out there. We'll go to the Royals, have a lot less. Go to the Rockies, sorry. If I said Royals before, I meant Rockies for this trade. So I think good job for Greg Jones having less eyes on him now, going to a bad Rockies team, trying to figure out his career there, seeing if he can do anything. A trade of this magnitude worked out well for the Guardians. Worked out well with them last year, trading for Nolan Jones of the Guardians, who's turned out to be a very nice piece for them. The Rays adding more pitching depth is nice. Joe Rock is a guy who hasn't done that well in minor leagues, but is close to the major leagues, and the Rays probably see something in him with one of his pitches or something like that he can be an impactful pitcher. The Rays always know what they're doing, and they need pitching depth right now because of all the pitching injuries they have with guys like Shane McClanahan, Jeffrey Springs. So I think it was a nice job by them, and nice trade by both teams, I think. Jonathan Aranda is having surgery for a broken finger and is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Not great news for the Rays. Another Rays middle infielder that was going to be a big part of their depth that is now going to miss some time. Of course, the middle infield situation there was a little bit of a question mark because of the Wander Franco situation and the other guys they've lost there in the middle infield. You're relying on guys like Jose Caballero, Ahmed Rosario, Taylor Walls to be big-time performers. So I don't think losing Aranda is great, but I don't think it should be that big of a deal. He's more of a depth guy, but still, you don't want to lose another bat anyways. So I think it's definitely not a great sign, but it could have been a lot worse. Edwin Arroyo, going to the Reds now here, is having season-ending shoulder surgery, which is not good news for the Reds at all. Have lost a lot of middle infielders recently. They just lost Matt McClain to injury, and he is going to be out for a little bit. Shouldn't be that major, but still, you don't want the season starting off like that. You had, Novelli Marte, who got suspended for PEDs, who is slotting in to be a big part of their middle infield. So I think you have still a lot of depth there, including guys you signed Heimer Candelario, who should be the everyday third baseman. Of course, you have Ellie De La Cruz. You have Jonathan India, who can play and fill in. So I think it's not a huge deal for the Reds, but again, you never want to lose depth, especially for a position where you are kind of having a little less now because of injuries. So I think that is something that is a negative. But going into it now, they did make a trade to kind of improve that in getting Santiago Espinal from the Blue Jays. Espinal is a former All-Star who I think is a really nice bench piece for the Reds here. This is a guy who can fill in at second and third, maybe even short from time to time, brings a nice glove, brings good contact against lefties, isn't bad against righties as well. I think overall is a great depth move for the Reds, and losing middle infielders like McClain, like Arroyo, like Marte for some extended amount of time for the latter two. McClain, of course, shouldn't be that big of a deal. So I think it was a great move by them to acquire Espinal, and I think really good job by them to see a need and get it. Last but not least, we are going to be talking about Jordan Montgomery. According to John Heyman of the New York Post, the Yankees have reopened contract talks with him, and this potentially open for a deal. I still don't think Montgomery ends up with the Yankees. I just don't think the Yankees have the money for it. I think Montgomery would love to sign there. I just don't think the Yankees have the money for it. I think Montgomery's just trying to get every single option he can now with the Rangers officially being off the board for his services with the signing of Michael Lorenzen. So I think it's kind of more Montgomery and Boris trying to find any team at all that'll want him. So I wouldn't look too deep into this. It also could just be Boris telling Heyman some false information and get his market brewing again, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that. So I don't think this is that big of a deal. I don't think Montgomery ends up with the Yankees, so I don't think this is a huge thing to watch, but it still was notable, and it still was something interesting that was happening with baseball, and some contract talks and some free agency news, which I always love to talk about. Always love free agency. So all right, that's the end of our show here today. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to follow us anywhere you can get content and updates: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, also all the other social medias, just anywhere you can get content and updates. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a positive review. Anything like that really helps the show. So thank you so much. Have a great day. Tomorrow I'll have a guest speaker on the show, one of the other podcast hosts. We'll be talking about some really exciting topics there. So excited for that. Definitely tune in. Same time as always, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern time. So thank you so much for that, and we'll see you then. And we'll see if baseball throws at us tomorrow. Goodbye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great.